Tressa Vazquez.
Yes.
Welcome to Truckin' On.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad we finally made it.
Yeah, me too. It's been a long time coming.
It's been like a year probably or longer.
It has. And it's perfectly timed.
It always is, right?
Yeah.
And I asked you like very soon after meeting you, I think, like to do the podcast. Mm-hmm. You're one of my favorite yoga instructors.
Thank you.
Not saying a lot. I've done like 1,000 yoga classes probably.
Wow.
But I started going to Core Power a few years ago, probably like 3 years ago now, and discovered your HPF class.
Yes.
Hot Power Fusion, which I think of as, I go to Pure Yoga here and I've done Bikram there for a long time, kind of the super traditional Bikram method, I guess. And I still go there, but I love the your version that you teach because it kind of incorporates a little bit of other yoga in there as well.
It does, and it just gives that little variance that kind of brings, the variety.
How long have you been teaching yoga?
This is going on 15 years, which is so crazy. So I became certified in 2010 and started teaching pretty right away, even though that was not my original plan. And been with Core Power since I came to Dallas, which is almost 10 years. And so I fell in love with their HPF when I first was introduced to it. And it's kind of turned into my personal practice, my favorite to take and also my favorite to teach.
And my other favorite class that I've attended of yours is the New Year's Day class.
Yeah.
With 108 sun salutations.
Yes.
Which was very challenging.
It is challenging.
I was so sore the next day.
I believe it.
I was sore, and I practice yoga 5 times a week probably, but doing 108 sun salutations, it's just a different kind of muscle usage.
It is physical and mental, right?
For sure. But it was a cool class. I think we should do them like once a quarter.
Some other people have said that too. And so, it's on the radar.
Not like every week.
No.
But anyway, I'll look forward to it in January at least.
Yeah.
So going back in time, I like to always start ages 12 to 22 in general and find out like what events occurred in your life that were meaningful and shaped you into who you are. I mean, the biggest thing that sticks out from that time period is
I was so into my youth group growing up, and in a very full circle way, I can see now how it laid all of the foundation for the work that I do now. And so I was raised in a Unity church. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Where?
The one I went to was actually on Lower Greenville.
So you grew up in Dallas?
I did. Well, I grew up in Plano, but we would drive down to Lower Greenville and go to this little church on McComas in Greenville every week. And it was like a very non-denominational Christian church based on like a metaphysical interpretation of the Bible. And when I turned 13 and I joined the youth group, it really started to lay this foundation of just such beautiful practices and learning to love myself and all the things that set me up for the good life.
Do you still go there?
I don't. And, when I had my own children, I took them a few times to go to the youth group. And I was lucky because in the 90s, it was like the heyday and the youth group was really thriving. And unfortunately, the church itself, it's just such an older congregation now.
Yeah.
And they don't really have the youth programming that they used to. Like all things, I got what I needed, and it was so fundamental for me, and I'm glad that I've moved on to new and other things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, your life is kind of like a church service in a way.
A little bit. It kind of is, and I've never thought of it that way. But in the youth group, we were learning to meditate and to Sufi dance and to be in nature and to be vulnerable and all these things that I think a lot of teenagers don't get introduced to. And I had some really profound spiritual experiences before I was 18. And that is just what sticks out from that time period in my life.
Wow. Through meditation, would you say? Or
through meditation, yeah, because, really a lot of the practices we learned were different types of meditation, but some of the biggest ones were through what was called Sufi dancing, or dances of universal peace. And it would be these circle dances that we would do together, and just like looking in each other's eyes and singing and moving together. Yeah, it was... The word that's coming to mind is, it was bizarre. At that age, it felt bizarre, like what is happening. And now I can look back and just see what a beautiful, beautiful thing it was.
That is so cool. I did not experience like any of that growing up.
Yeah.
And I loved my church, and I was in the youth group. I went to Northridge Presbyterian, and I actually went there on Sunday with my parents for the first time in decade plus. I don't even remember the last time I was there. But it was very traditional, like Protestant church, but I mean, pretty liberal in terms of like their approach to Christianity. And we did study other religions in Sunday school. I remember doing that and learning about different religions, but not the meditation, the metaphysical side of things was something that was just off of my radar until I was like 40 years old. Yeah. And I actually started doing yoga around that time. So like when I was probably 38, 37, I started practicing yoga in 2016, 17, around there. And that kind of introduced me to, and I'd done yoga classes before, but then once you start going a lot and trying different teachers, then I did a Baron Baptiste like teacher training. Cool. And started meditating, but I didn't discover this until I was in my late 30s.
Yeah, I'm definitely so thankful for my parents and for the way that they raised me. And, I guess growing up at the time, they were a little hippie-ish. My dad is not at all anymore. He would not want to be identified as a hippie at all.
But back then,
he totally was, and he had an afro and the whole thing. And like if we didn't go to church, they would take us to the lake, and we'd be on a blanket, and we'd be talking about God and reading the Bible or whatever books they brought. But it was always presented and never pushed, And so like my siblings were not very much into the youth group, like I was, and that would, they did sports, and I went to church. Yeah. So yeah.
That's cool. So then, you got out of, did you go to Plano High School? Or?
I did. I went to Plano East. And I guess something else that was like during that time period that was very influential in my life was I actually got kicked out of high school really? My senior year. And I was like on track to graduate advanced with honors and doing the whole thing. And 3 months before I graduated, I got kicked out, and I lost all my advanced with honors credits, and I ended up not going to college, and it just totally changed the trajectory of my life. And at the time it felt very detrimental. And again, now hindsight, it's all good. We made it.
So what happened?
So, it was so stupid. I picked a friend up who was at school, and we left. It was before school. I picked her up, and we left, and we went and got high. And she was always in trouble and always being watched. And then we came back to school to go to school. And they saw me come and go with her, and they pulled us out of class. And that's why I got kicked out for going to school high. And I was very honest about it. I didn't try and hide anything, and I was apologetic. And they put me in ISS for 2 weeks, and then they ended up kicking me out for good, which felt a little over the top for the happening. But
it's too bad you didn't grow up where you went to church down here and go to Woodrow with me, and then they would have just laughed at the whole thing.
I definitely felt like they were making an example out of me, for sure.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it was weird.
Wow. The 90s, I guess, in certain places, like it was bad. Like
it was bad. And Plano was, like the heroin epidemic at the time.
That's
and there was
true.
Just like so much like zero tolerance for anything happening.
Did you ever witness any of the heroin
I did.
going on? I never saw that at Woodrow.
Yeah.
Like there were like shootings and guns and drugs and everything, but I knew some people that smoked weed. I never did when I actually did my senior year of high school. Like I tried it. But I wasn't big into that. And I didn't know a lot of the like the people that were doing drugs, I didn't really know. I was grounded for most of high school because if I went out, I would drink and get in trouble with my parents and be grounded for months at a time. And that was like a pattern. So it kind of worked. Like, it kept me away from drugs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you witnessed some of it. Did you lose any like friends and classmates?
Actually, not me super directly, but although I did have a family member who struggled with it during that time. And, it was, well, anyway, she ended up getting clean on her own, but her best friend never did. And when we were in our 30s, her best friend ended up ODing on heroin. And, it was tragic. And to see, I know that, my family member lost a lot of close friends from the experiences that she had at that time. And it was real and right there. Yeah,
that is scary. And thankfully, just nothing that's ever come into my spectrum, despite even playing in a band through my 20s and all that. But it was never, I didn't know anyone doing heroin. They weren't telling me about it. And it was never in my sphere. So I did go to a treatment center for alcohol around the same time I discovered yoga and all that, my late 30s. And the people there for opioids in general, like heroin or Oxycontin or whatever it may be, like the battle against that opioid addiction versus like an alcohol was just almost like night and day in terms of how much tougher of a time they had with it. And the withdrawal symptoms they experienced and hearing their stories, it's scary. If I wasn't already scared of it, which I was through my whole life, like that, witnessing that, the suffering that people went through getting off of it is just like something that I, wouldn't want to see anyone have to struggle with. So after you got kicked out of high school, we were like, well, what now?
I was like, what now? So then I took all my savings, which wasn't much, and I moved to Austin.
Okay.
And I hung out for, 6 months, and it was great, but nothing ever really, I couldn't really find my way there either. And
what year is this that
was in 1998.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. I was 18. And then in early 99, I became a roadie for this one-man show who I had connected with through the youth group. He would come to our conferences and retreats, and he had this show he called, it was the Soul and Consciousness Tour, latter 20th century, and he called his music Urban Ethnic New Age. And he was this most amazing man from Rhode Island named Leroy White. And so I spent about 4 or 5 months on the road with him, and it was also a very amazing experience, and I just learned so much from him, and in so many ways. And came home from that.
What kind of tour were you playing? Like
we played everything
clubs?
From church. No, it was like some like theaters and stuff, like something to like the equivalent of like the Granada or something. Some music festivals, and then conferences and retreats in different churches. We would go to some of the other like youth retreats, and he would do the weekends there. And so there was a variety of different.
Would you have hotel rooms along the way, or just crash on couches?
No, we would get hotel rooms sometimes, but we actually drove like a box truck that pulled an RV, and it was. You have to have a special license at 53 feet, and it was 52 feet. And he made me drive that thing sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. Oh,
it was just the two of you?
It was me and him and another girl who did his sound, and then I did his lights and his merch table. That was the merch girl.
So cool.
It was awesome. And so mostly we slept in the RV and just went all over the country. And yeah, that was quite an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that like 2002 to 2006. I played 200 shows a year.
Wow.
And there's just like no better way to see the world.
It's true.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And you're meeting like local people every city you go to, and they want to show you around and tell you what to do. And you're kind of like welcomed into each city.
Yes.
Even if there's 5 people at the show, sometimes welcoming you in on a Tuesday, it's still like someone knows you're coming.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool.
And everyone's always so excited you're there. And it's so welcoming. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So then you came back from the road.
I came back from the road, and he was someone who really encouraged me to go to college. And so I did. When I got home, I enrolled in community college and started studying photography and really fell in love with it. And then when I was 22, I got pregnant unexpectedly. And at the time, it was all darkroom photography. And so I had to withdraw from school because it wasn't safe to do that while I was pregnant. It was questionable, and it felt like too risky.
What, just like the fumes or something?
Yeah, all the chemicals and stuff.
Yeah,
There
that
just
makes sense.
wasn't like enough research on it, I guess.
Yeah.
My teacher was kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe.
I was going to ask, like, did you get impregnated in the darkroom?
I mean, no, but that would have been a good story.
That's what I was thinking at first, but I put two and two together.
Yeah, no, they were separate.
And then you became a mom
And then I
at
became
22.
a mom at 20. It was 23 when she was born.
23.
Yep, a month after
Yeah.
my 23rd birthday. Yeah.
How cool is that now? Having like you're
crazy.
still young and
I
you
am
have a
still young.
grown child.
Yeah, but the craziest part, and I haven't actually told a lot of people this, is I'm going to be a grandma, and so my 21-year-old is now expecting a baby, and it's crazy.
She's just doing the same.
Yeah, she's like
same path.
It's like very generational.
Did she tour with the one-man band?
No, she didn't, but yeah, nothing quite like that. But she's got such a different head on her shoulders than I did, and she's very career oriented, and so she's working at a hair salon and finishing her apprenticeship there, and has her own place, things I didn't have at that age.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to be here again in the same and very different way. Yeah.
And you have another child?
Yeah, so I have three. I
kids.
have two daughters. They're 21 and 19, and my son is 17. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're like at the end of
I am. And it's cool. And it, speaking to what you mentioned earlier of like, when I found out she was pregnant, was this feeling of like, I finally see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'll be here. And also I'm doing me too,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, I've definitely, my son lives with his dad now, and he moved there about 2 years ago. But up until that point, I very much single mommed them for the majority of the time. And so, yeah, it's like a new freedom that I have not known.
Like full-time single momming?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot.
For a lot of it.
I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I single dad half the time. Mm-hmm. So splitting the time, I understand the intensity of it, but to do it full time, like, much respect.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Thank you. Yeah. And we had fun. We call ourselves the Four Tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is like this super deep connection I've developed with my kids since we got divorced, just because I am like fulfilling the roles of mom and dad when they're with me. So it's like super intense 3 or 4 days a week. And then they're with mom, and it's great. And I'll still, and she and I are really cool. So I'll go over there from, all the time. Like I see them all the time. But when they're here, the parenting is different than when you're like doing it with two people at the same time. Like, 'cause you're the one. There's no like, will you go handle Levi? No. So that's amazing. I love being a dad. Yeah. It's the best.
Yeah. I always wanted to be a mom, and I always wanted 2 girls and a boy. So it worked out.
I always wanted a boy and a girl. I did the same. That's cool. And then you just have been in Dallas this whole time?
Yeah. I always would have thought I would have left, but I think because I started having kids so young, because after the first one, then I was like, well, we started. Let's just get it over with. And so by the time I was 27, I had 3 kids and never left Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah. Where did they go to school?
Both of my girls went to Booker T. And then my son, he did go to Woodrow, and now he goes to Plano East. And he actually lives in the house I grew up in and goes to my high school I went to. And it's very...
Does he really?
Yeah.
Wow. With your dad?
So with my ex-husband. I mean, it's a long story.
Okay. Yeah. So your ex-husband's living in your childhood home
He
with your
is,
son.
and my mom is his landlord.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
It sounds like a good little family dynamic going on.
Most of the time
Still
it works
family.
for us.
Yeah. That is great. And that's cool. Booker T, what did they do at Booker T?
My oldest went for visual art, and my younger daughter went for theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Such a cool school.
It really was. Yeah. I'm thankful that they both got to have that experience.
Yeah. And then you started teaching yoga.
I did. Yeah, between all of that and teaching yoga was a 10-year career in medical recruiting.
Okay.
With the house in the suburbs and the picket fence, and I was really trying to play the game. And I did good.
You did,
and
right?
It was fun. Yeah, I had a good time.
You raised your kids. You're working at like a corporate job.
Yeah.
And,
I had suits and high heels and the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't really picture it knowing you from the world that I know you in.
I know. It's like
I'm
fun
like
to
that.
think about.
Like I work a corporate job currently.
Yeah.
And people that just meet me in that world now, I'm pretty like out there with my podcast and on social media all the time, so everyone kind of knows what's up with me. But in early stage, it was like I had a hidden identity that I was not really sharing. And I would say to a degree, I was living in fear of sharing who I really was, like showing my tattoos and letting them know about my crazy band lifestyle. Like I would tell people if I got to know them, but it wasn't something that I was like wearing on my sleeve the way I do today, which is really just from doing a lot of work and getting comfortable with who I am to and knowing that these things don't matter, that sometimes when you're younger, you worry about things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but then you decided, so how did that look, leaving corporate America to pursue the esoteric arts?
Yeah, it was like this period that I was with one company for a really long time, and then they started to kind of tank. And then it was this subsequent jumping every year. And maybe the third time it happened, I could feel like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is not fulfilling. And so I decided to give myself a year to see if I could make teaching yoga work full time. And about 6 months into that year, and it was not working great at that time, Core Power came to town. And I was having a really hard time. I had moved from the suburbs back down to Dallas, and no one wanted to hire me to teach yoga because I wasn't like a cool, well-known Dallas yogi. And so when Core Power came, they didn't care. They just were glad that, like, they could see I could teach yoga, and they wanted to hire me. And so they were kind of like the jumping point of really making the health and wellness thing take off into a full-time career. And that's one thing I really love about Core Power, is as corporate as it is they have been so supportive of me from the get-go. And at one point I even left and opened my own studio, and they were supportive of that. They welcomed me back when that didn't work out and I wanted to come back. And so it was really the jumping point of making that a full-time thing.
Does Core Power provide things like health insurance and things like that for the yoga instructors, or how is it set up there?
Yeah, they do if you teach enough classes, and they definitely do if you're more on like the teacher training and management side. And so at the beginning I was, and you could get time off and health insurance and
salaries and that type of deal.
Yeah.
Or are you like 1099 sometimes?
No, you're not at all
never...
ever. You're always an employee, which has been such a blessing for me because so much of the work I do is 1099 that it's created this like very lovely way to work within it where I'm not stressed out about paying taxes.
Yeah. Taxes, mortgages, like anything. I've been 1099 for the majority of my adult life. And it's funny because it seems like such a common thing, but like if you go to get a loan, they're like, well, what do you make per month? And I'm a realtor, so I don't know what month is it, and I'll tell you at the end of the year. Like exactly. I don't know what I'm going to make each month. So that's nice that you have the combo.
It is. It works well for me. Yeah.
So right on. And then, so tell me about getting into all of the other healing
I will say,
vocations you're in.
I will say that yoga, when I started doing yoga, and especially when I started teaching, it really reconnected me to the essence of the things I learned in my youth group, and that piece of spirituality that had been a little dormant through small children in corporate America and things like this. And so I was at a yoga festival, and I was in line for a workshop, and this man and woman in front of me started talking about ayahuasca. And I'd heard about it before, and always felt like a very hard no. Like at that point, feeling like I'm an adult and I have small kids, and I'm not taking powerful psychedelics anymore. But there was something in this couple and the way they were sharing that just made me feel like I have to do this. And I got home from that retreat, and a week later, a childhood friend called me and said, "This is going to sound crazy, but I was at this conference and I heard this panel and I want to go do this thing. Will you come with me?" And it was ayahuasca.
Again.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm there. And it really is what has just completely shifted my entire life. Yeah.
And they'll tell you like that ayahuasca finds you. You don't find the ayahuasca, so it comes to you. Mm-hmm. Similar thing happened to me where, I'd never heard of it before in my life. And then all of a sudden, it's like I just started hearing about it from so many random people that I would not have even expected. Mm-hmm. And this probably began in 2018, I would say, around that time frame. So I think it's like it was probably becoming kind of more popular at that stage, but now I don't know if it's more popular, if I'm just like have been such a part of that world that I see it all the time.
Right.
And the AI knows what to send me. And anyway, so did you decide to go on your first ayahuasca journey?
Yeah, to go on a retreat with her. And before I went, I didn't want to tell anyone what I was doing. It was like no one knew. And I mentioned it to one person, and it was this guy on the cleaning crew at Core Power. And he got so excited and knew exactly what I was talking about. And he said similarly what you just said. He's like, "Oh, she's courting you." And I loved that because that's what it felt like. I felt like this plant was courting me to come meet her. And I went to the retreat. I sat for 2 nights, and I knew in that moment that I would be working with this plant for the rest of my life. And I really had no idea what that was going to be like. But through that plant, I have been introduced to so much, and including the holographic sound healing that I do, and other plants that have changed my life and just taught me so much, and people, and yeah.
When was this?
That was in 2017. Okay.
And so then you left and I've done ayahuasca. I did one 3-night ceremony at Solterra. Have you heard of Solterra? Uh-huh. It was really nice. But I got so many downloads during that. I would say this podcast is a creation that came out of that.
Cool.
So many different things. So you walked out of there, I assume, with having gotten this great clarity on your path. And so you were just teaching yoga, and then did you start moving into learning more about the plants?
No, really what happened is I just kept feeling pulled to keep going back. And so at the beginning, it was really just going back for me and continuing to work on me.
Okay.
And through that, continued showing up, things started to unfold. And probably the first thing that I really started to learn was combo with the frog medicine.
Yeah.
And the teachers I was working with at the time taught me how to administer combo and to share it. And so that was kind of the first introduction for me to kind of start putting it out in that way. And then I was introduced to my sound teacher and learned holographic sound and started sharing that as well. And I never really thought that I would maybe share ayahuasca or lead these trips for people to go into the jungle or things like this. And, it's like I put one foot in front of the other, and I'm equally in awe as what keeps unfolding and just showing up for it.
Where did you do it the first time?
It was actually in Austin, at a retreat center in Austin. Yeah. And that's where I sat mostly for most of the first few years. And then I had a trip planned to Peru, and COVID happened.
Okay.
And so it took about another year and a half after the original plan to go to actually make it to the jungle the first time.
And also, like, how would you describe what ayahuasca is for someone that's never heard of it before?
I mean, on a very basic level, it's the mixture of two plants from the jungle, and one of them will provide DMT, and the other one makes it so that your body doesn't process the DMT so quickly, and so it elongates this DMT experience, which is the ayahuasca experience. So that's what's happening, like, on the basic level. Ayahuasca is referred to as the grandmother. So it's like we will refer to her as like her. So it's this very feminine energy that is so loving and so divine. And I was at a retreat recently and I heard someone say, the medicine, she will either show you love or all the things that are in the way of love. And that's really what I feel like she does.
Wow, that is beautiful. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
And it was amazing for me when I went to Solterra. The healers that were facilitating the ceremony were from the Shipibo tribe in Peru. And they explained that they'll sing Icaros, right?
Yeah.
When they're serving the ayahuasca, and there were probably 20 of us in the Maloka, which is the structure that we were, the ceremony was taking place in. And they would kind of sing to the group, but then they would go from person to person around the Maloka and sing specifically to each person. And they explained that they're, through all of their training, which they did from the time they were born, basically, like they were born into this lineage, like you're going to be an ayahuasca shaman or whatever. And they would go on these intense dietas in the jungle to prepare for this, but basically teaching them to communicate with the souls of the plants.
Yes.
And that was something, when I heard that there for the first time, I'd never heard that before. But it's like I had got it too, and then it's like working with the grandmother to kind of help navigate and like through whatever the ayahuasca is doing to the group, right? Yeah,
and the plants, all the plants have like almost like personalities. And so you're like getting to know these plants, and some plants you get along with better than others, and some are more influential, and it's so wild and interesting, but they have their own essence, their own souls, their own things to teach us if we're curious enough to listen. And the main plant I work with is this plant called Bobinsana. And it's a plant in the jungle that has these beautiful like powder puff pink flowers, similar to the mimosa here. They're related. And it's a plant that will open our hearts and help heal grief and trauma. And what she has taught me has been so much about self-love. And it's this self-love of like the most intimate kind. And if I could hear myself saying this, and I didn't know anything about it, it sounds like totally wacko, that this plant has taught me more about love than any person I've ever met. And truly that's been my experience working with this plant and doing the diets and just, getting to know it.
And how do you work with that plant?
Sometimes we put it in the ayahuasca. Sometimes we do like the plant dietas, like the Shipibo mentioned. We'll do that. But you could also work with it. It's like very good also for like the dream space. So you could get a tincture or make it a tea and work with it before bedtime. And with all the plants, as long as you're working with them they like invitation. So if you're inviting them in, they'll usually share their wisdom. Yeah. If you're taking the space to set an intention and invite them in.
And if you think about the fact that if these plants do have souls, which I truly believe, their souls, just like the DNA of the plant has been around for much longer than humans, like significantly longer, right? Like and so they just have an ancient wisdom that existed before we existed.
Yeah. And when you're working with them, they're sharing that, and they're like putting their roots in you to share their wisdom and their, just that rootedness that goes deep into the ground.
And I've found like the more I look into ancient wisdom in general, and even spiritual teachings from human beings, it's so simple, right? It's really rooted in like very simple, common message of like love and balance and gratitude. And I mean, just it's pretty simple, the truth.
It is. And that was one thing I'm so grateful for my youth group, because it was such the message of like many paths, one destination, many paths, one God. Yeah. And I do believe that, and that the message is common in all the ways there. Yeah,
I agree. So then you moved to Kambo or Combo?
People say it both ways. I say Kambo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to say that, and then I got corrected to Kambo, and now I'm just confused.
Yeah.
But Kambo seems like it would be the way to pronounce it. So that is the medicine of the frog. Mm-hmm. And explain that too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, this one is, it's a very powerful physical medicine. And so the way that it's administered is there's small burns put on the surface of your skin, and then the Kambo medicine is put on these burns. And when it's applied, it goes into your lymphatic system. And it is filled with biopeptides that our body recognizes as if we made it on our own. And so it begins to trigger all these system resets through the whole body. And it's intense. It's, fast heartbeat, flush, hot, sweat. There's usually a purge into a bucket, sometimes other ways. And the whole thing maybe lasts 20 to 30 minutes. In the jungle, they use it like a hunting medicine. And so they take it and then they go hunting, because it makes you so clear and so focused. And it just gives you this ability. It makes me feel like a ninja warrior princess, just like throw it at me, life. I got it. And it's so grounding and so clarifying. And it really sets the physical body to like this place of homeostasis. And so it's very powerful for all kinds of things.
And it really doesn't have like hallucinogenic effects. Like,
not at all.
Yeah. Mm-mm. I've done it twice, and I purged both times in two different ways.
Yeah.
And once in a bucket, once on the side of the road. But yeah, I felt that too, and I haven't gone back, and so I'll have to come.
I would love that.
You serve me some Kambo sometime.
Yeah, I would love to share it with you.
And so what is it from the frog that you're actually getting?
It is like the secretion off the frog. And so when you're collecting it, and actually I lead some trips to Peru, and when we're there, we go with the Matse, which is a tribe that uses Kambo frequently, and we collect the frog, and they kind of tie them to little sticks and just tickle them, perturb them a little with a stick, and they'll start to excrete on their back this solution that we use. And I've heard, is it venom? Maybe. I'm not 100% sure if it is the venom.
Yeah. So, and thanks for sharing all of this, because you're my first like true expert on these topics I've ever had on the podcast.
Well, thank you. And I would hardly call myself an expert, but I appreciate it.
Well, you're like walking the walk.
Yeah.
And I see that.
Yes.
And so in my mind, you're an expert.
Thank you.
And you're doing, and I've done ayahuasca and Kambo, but I feel like you're explaining it in a way that is very eloquent. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
But I want to keep moving through the medicines that you work with and that you're a fan of. So and then I want to get to the sound.
Okay.
So like should we keep on the frog path and talk about Bufo?
I mean, we could talk about Bufo alvarius. As I told you before we started recording, I had my first experience this past weekend with that medicine, and it was wild.
Where?
I was at a retreat that was in Texas, and it's a medicine that I've never felt a draw to work with. And there was something this weekend that shifted in me that I said, okay, I'm going to do a microdose. And what I was given was a microdose, although the experience I had was not a microdose. It was a macro experience. And even the facilitator said, I gave you the smallest amount. And I don't know if I'm just super sensitive to this particular medicine, but it was wild and unlike anything I've ever experienced.
And that is is that venom from a toad?
That is from a toad from the Sonoran Desert. I don't know a ton about it other than it was from the toad from the Sonoran Desert.
And you smoke it?
You smoke it, yeah. Uh-huh.
And I mean, I understand it zaps you out of your body. Did you?
What I experienced at first when it started was this feeling of like dissolve, where I just felt like my body was dissolving, and then all of a sudden I was like in this tunnel, and it felt like I was flying down a train tunnel, and just black, fast, and white lights. And at some point I laid down, and then I was the tunnel, and I could feel the rushing from the tunnel as me, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And then it was just moving through these layers of purification. And the whole weekend I was working with a lot of anger and rage that is from the paternal line in my family. A lot of these medicines, they're called ancestral medicines. And a big part of it is because they heal our lineages. So often you will hear they'll heal 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And anyway, yes. So the purification feeling was like cleaning out the specific rage and anger that had been put in me from this line, but also cleaning it out of my DNA and also cleaning it out of the lineage. And it just felt like I was the tunnel that was just washing. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And so anything else you'd want to touch on there in the world of the medicines, the plant medicines?
No, I don't think so. Other than, if you're feeling the pull to work with them, it's a good thing to notice.
Yeah, I think it'll call you in.
Yeah.
And like going to Solterra, they required that I get a doctor's note, like from the doctor. And I know there are like some people that have certain, maybe like bipolar disorders or things like that, where it might not be a good idea. So
there's definitely
it's just research it. But, the experiences that I encountered were completely life-changing. Yeah. I mean, to the point where I'm at a place in life where I've just been guided to absolute sobriety, which is something that I've done oftentimes over the course of my adult life. But I feel, I hope I don't jinx myself by saying this, but I feel like I'm in a state of peace now with my sobriety that I've never been in before. And through breath work and meditation, I'm getting everything I need to live in a peaceful state, which is really the ultimate goal of all of this, right?
It is. And my original medicine teacher, he would always say the goal is an empty cup and that we're trying to put ourselves out of business because the goal is to not need the medicines to get to the places where they take us and to find the peace and the love and the beauty and all of it.
Yeah, and also I think what I've been experiencing is finding a way to go to the same places that the medicines have taken me just through breath and meditation. Yeah. And I do believe that that's possible.
100%.
I mean, I know it's possible from what I've been experiencing. And I dedicate now several hours per day to this practice that I'm being led to do. That's like a hybrid of breath and meditation and to kind of like Tai Chi and some of that and just doing it. Yeah. And it's its own pathway to get me in touch and to purify myself and to keep working on myself. Yeah. So that's awesome. Now the sound is just like so important, even if we're doing yoga and like saying Om and I love listening to music. I even find myself when I do my meditation practice, I might listen to Krishna Das, which is really good spiritual music, or I'll put on my Spotify playlist of like 90s hit songs, like we do in yoga sometimes, either or, right? But the sound is so powerful.
Yes.
Like all forms of sound. And I'm a musician, obviously, and like love music, but like, you're working with bowls. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, mostly I do work with bowls, but also it's a lot of vocalization. And so I would say the two ways that sound show up big in my life is one, in my personal yoga practice, I do practice bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of love and devotion, and it involves a lot of chanting, like Krishna Das. And so that is a part of my daily practice in chanting. And then the other side of that is the holographic sound healing, which is with the bowls and the toning. And it's a practice that actually in one of my early ayahuasca ceremonies, someone was playing a bowl in the ceremony and singing, and ayahuasca turned me and her into like this steam, and we went through the sound waves of the bowls together. And I thought it was a beautiful way to experience that sound experience, and later realized what was happening. It was actually like a download of how to share sound. And the person sharing the sound at the time had worked with, his name is Dr. Paul Hubbard, who's now my sound teacher, and this particular type of holographic sound. And it's really he would say like it's the combination of sound vibration and sacred geometry. And so it makes this multi-dimensional sound healing. And it is some of the most powerful medicine I've ever experienced, and definitely had very plant medicine-like experiences just with the bowls and voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what would you tell your younger self if you could go back in a time machine? What advice would you give? And I'm sure you do this already.
Yeah, I would tell her, like, it's all going to be okay. And just to, like, trust and be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
What would you say the greatest obstacle is that you've had to overcome?
Probably, I would say going through my divorce. Yeah, which was about 14 years ago.
That's what I said when I asked myself these questions.
Yeah, that was tough. And before I got to that piece, my body was physically telling me to get out, and I wasn't listening, so I kept getting sicker and sicker. And I ended up getting like diagnosed with Crohn's disease and all kinds of crazy things before I left, and had to like explode out, you know. Are
these things that you still struggle with, or did they go away?
They went away because the doctor didn't like to acknowledge that, but Crohn's would be considered a non-curable disease. And I don't have it, so.
I figured you would say that.
Yeah.
And I think once you get into the world of the esoteric arts, you start to find out that the possibility of getting rid of chronic diseases becomes something that's very real and possible through just simply doing breath work and meditation, but also changing your behavior. I think, which meditation, I think, is the greatest pathway to do that. If you don't want to do anything but breathe and sit and be still, I think plant medicine can speed that process up and help you to identify things in your life. Like, I remember when I did ayahuasca, I made a list. It was just like a to-do list from my soul. That's like simple things, like get a nanny, you know, like, cause we're single parenting and doing this, like I can afford to have a nanny. Like this is crazy not to get one to share with my ex-wife. But like little things, just like eat clean, or just like point out relationships in my life that were problematic and like that needed to be healed, and showed me like, you maybe not here's how to heal it, but you got to heal this. You got to tell the truth. About things. Like I had shame around some things that at that point in time that I didn't want to share with anyone, not even a therapist, no one. I'd go to yoga teacher training with Barry and Baptiste, and they're like, share your deepest, darkest secret. I was like, Hell no, I'm not sharing that with anybody here. But then I eventually did share all my secrets. Now I do so on this podcast, so naturally. But the truth transmutes the shame. You see it, but I saw the energy, like the energetic debris it was creating within me, and like the weight on my shoulders that I was carrying, and what physical turmoil that like energetic debris was causing me that had nothing to do with like what food I was eating. Right. Well, that might come up too. Like eat better food, but so much of it is not like these physical things. It's these energetic things that occur when you're not honoring commitments or not telling the truth or taking on too much that you can't handle or being in a relationship with someone you're not compatible with. Maybe like how you're like raising your children, like these things, like these little simple shifts to make in life that can just like free you from disease. And I mean, it happens. And then to believe that it happens gives you that extra power. Yeah. Versus some naysayer doctor, like you're stuck with this for the rest of your life and you're never going to get out of it. And I mean, if you're just a normal person that wasn't ever exposed to any of this, like I once was, you take everything that a doctor might tell you like to heart, and then you believe that. And you're like, well, I'm never getting rid of this. It's chronic. It's forever. And I guess I'm just going to deal with it and deal with the situation instead of go read a Joe Dispenza book.
Right.
And
I feel like it's such a travesty that doctors can tell people like you have 6 months to live. I'm like, shut up. Like they shouldn't be allowed to say things like that.
Yeah. I went in my early stages of my spiritual awakening. I went to a lot of Tony Robbins conferences and he's big on that, like telling stories of like telling the doctor, like, just tell them that they're fine. Like, don't tell them they have 1 month to live. Tell them that they can beat this if they change their diet. And hearing the miraculous stories that occur when someone just switches to a vegan diet and starts meditating. And I mean, it's of course, like not always that's all you need. Sometimes it's a cocktail of some Eastern and Western medication. But these problems I think they all can be solved. Yeah,
I think
with
so too.
Enough time and dedication and belief. So that's cool. My next question is, have you ever had a mystical experience? I don't know.
I mean, I have.
You just told me 10.
Yeah, I was going to say we could do a whole other podcast. Yeah, I have.
Yeah, you have. And you've described some already. So I don't know if anything else comes to mind, like, this thing.
There's a few that pop out, but when I was really little, and I don't say this out loud very much either, but I used to see the Virgin Mary when I was really little. She would come kneel at my door, and I don't know. I don't know if it lasted days or weeks or months, but at some point I closed my door because I couldn't sleep. And then I never saw her again.
What was she like?
She just would kneel there. I felt like she was praying for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when I was little. One time I was serving combo, or actually I was training someone to serve combo. So they were serving it and I was just sitting back watching in my living room. And all of a sudden I saw, this is quotations, the busts of my grandparents in their hands. And they went, "It's our anniversary." And then they disappeared. And now my grandpa died when I was 12. I don't know when their anniversary was, but I called my mom that day after combo, and sure as shit, that was their wedding anniversary.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is wild.
That was a pretty wild one. Yeah.
That is wild.
And then I see clients one-on-one with holographic sound. And recently, a few weeks ago, actually, I was working on a client that I work on very regularly. And for the first time ever, I had like a visitor that told me his name and everything. And I knew it was her dad. And I confirmed it with her after our session. I said, there was a man here named James or Jim. And she just started crying. And she said, that's my dad.
Wow.
And so that one was pretty wild.
And then now you're bringing up another point that I believe in, that I like to discuss, is that all human beings, I think, are capable of tapping in
100%
to seeing and hearing and feeling beyond the veil.
Yep.
to the other side. And and I would imagine like I think it's just like when you're doing work and you're like really keeping your energy clean and light and you're living like in alignment with your soul's purpose, then you start to witness that we are all energy and it's all interconnected and all of that. So
yes.
And I would expect if that just occurred that it probably won't be the last time that this
I felt
happens.
like that. It felt like I feel like I've been through a big initiation last year and that things have started to open more. And so one of my personal practices, because, it starts with synchronicities and just noticing these little things. And then at first things started coming through that were totally like pointless. Like, why do I need to know this? And then it starts to hone. And so I'm always so sure to say thank you when it happens and to let source know, thank you so much. I hear you. I'm listening. Yeah. And then it gets stronger.
Do you notice numbers?
Oh yeah.
Like time?
My number is 37 and it is, I could tell you 37 mystical experiences I've had with that number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like time? Like when you see like a 333 or an 1111,
any of the
things
angel
like
numbers.
that, the angel numbers.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes I always talk about this too, but like, I don't know, they'll start just like really popping up. Like what is going on?
And then it'll be the same one for a while. Like I was seeing 222 for so much, Yeah.
Yeah. And I always view that as like you're on the right path or it's a yes, I feel like it's a yes, like keep doing that or yes, dude, go meditate or call your mom. Yeah.
I had this experience. I was in Bali and I accepted a ride from someone I didn't really know. And we went from the beach to the city and we started going away I didn't recognize. And I panicked and felt like, oh my gosh, I could be lost in this rice field and no one would know. And as soon as I had that thought, we turned this corner and there was a shed and the whole side of the shed was painted the most gigantic number 37 I'd ever seen.
Wow.
And I was like,
you're good.
I'm good. I'm fine.
And you did just relax, right?
100%.
Yeah, for sure. That is awesome. So you travel quite extensively.
I do.
At this stage of life, this is your new career path.
Yeah.
Since I've known you, you've gone to Peru multiple times and Egypt.
Yes. These are the two main ones.
How was Egypt?
Egypt is amazing. I co-lead a trip through Egypt with my sound teacher, Dr. Paul, and he's been doing it for over 20 years. And so I've been lucky enough to go on the last 4 or 5 with him. And we travel through all the temples and we do holographic sound in the temples. And we do a private sound ceremony in the Great Pyramid in the middle of the night. And talk about mystical experiences. It's out of this world.
I don't remember I think it must have been you sharing this or if it was someone else about the pyramids, but I hear like going into the pyramids, like it's just like you feel
it is
power.
So much. And, who knows what they're really made for, but they lend themselves so much to the sound work that we're doing that it just creates such an atmosphere of, beauty and healing and love. And it's powerful.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. Now moving on to some more third dimensional questions.
Okay.
Well, I guess it depends on how you view these questions, but what's your favorite restaurant?
I am like such a creature of habit. So my 2 go-tos are Gloria's and Sundown. That's pretty much where I'm headed if I'm going out to eat.
Great places. Right across the street from each other, right by your old church.
And right by my house where I live now. So it's like very in the bubble. I know what I'm getting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What about a book that you recommend?
I think I would recommend The Hidden Secret of the Flower of Life, which is a 2-book series, actually, and it is amazing. It is all about sacred geometry and sound, and it's pretty wild.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote?
I do. Rumi. My favorite quote is from him, and it's, "Our task is not to seek for love, but all the barriers we've built against it." This is my mission.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
Love that.
Yeah.
What else do I have? What about a movie? Do you watch movies?
I do watch, not so much now, but my all-time favorite movie ever was this movie from the 90s called House of Yes. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
With Parker Posey.
I love her.
It's amazing. I mean, it's dark and kind of grotesque.
Of course.
But I love it.
She's in the White Lotus.
Yeah, I've been hearing this.
She is so good.
I haven't seen it yet, but I feel like she's going to encourage me to watch it.
She's hilarious.
I love her.
She's just like this like rich lady mom that's just so funny. She's hilarious. Southern.
Yeah. When I
Her
was
accent. I love her in Dazed and Confused. That's my favorite.
or Party Girl. I love her in anything.
She's so good.
Me and my old roommate, when I was like 19, we would like videotape ourselves reenacting scenes from the House of Yes.
I have to watch that.
It's pretty epic.
Yeah. And is there like a cause that you support that you'd like to share?
I would say my biggest cause is that I support both energetically and financially are the Amazon. Just keeping the Amazon healthy and safe, and keeping the people who hold the medicines there sovereign, and supporting them in the jungle in any way that I can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, how do people track you down?
Right now, probably the best way is just on Instagram, and it's Tress, Tres 37. Yeah, and that's where I put most of my journeys. I do 2 a year to Peru and 1 to 2 a year to Egypt right now. Retreats and sound and all the things are up there.
In Core Power Yoga, Henderson location.
Yeah.
And you'll find me there as well.
Yep, Hot Power Fusion. If I'm not teaching it, I'm taking it.
That's right. You are. You're there. We've taken lots of yoga classes together,
absolutely.
or you as the teacher, or as one of my fellow students.
Yeah.
So, such an amazing honor to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for always teaching me awesome yoga classes.
Absolutely.
And now I'm very much like going to have to experience the holographic sound medicine and a combo ceremony, maybe all in one.
Yeah, and actually I do often use the sound with the combo. And I do also group sound at Alive and Well on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah.
Where is Alive and Well?
It's over off Fitzhugh and Bella Vista.
Nice.
By O2.
On the east side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Well, that's all I got today.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. I'm glad to connect this way. It was awesome.
Thanks, Tressa, for trucking on. Peace.